I'm Til Wykes. I'm a professor at the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience, and as well as that, I'm a consultant clinical psychologist in the South London and Maudsley NHS Foundation Trust. And I do a lot of different things here. So I'm a researcher. I do quite a lot of research on involving people with lived experience, but I also develop treatments and try and implement those treatments, particularly into inpatient services. So some people argue that there is nobody who hasn't got a cognitive problem who has a diagnosis of schizophrenia. But of course, if you've got very severe problems, then that will affect you much, much more, because you won't be able to carry on a conversation. You won't be able to solve some very relatively simple problems like going to the shops and remembering what you needed to buy, or even working out how to go round the supermarket and buy the things that you've got on your list. So they have very wide effects that it's quite hard to comprehend if you haven't actually been with somebody who has a diagnosis of schizophrenia. But usually they do know. They know what their problems are. They can tell us what their problems are. And they've been able to tell us that they have got problems for the last 100 years. So really, we should have been able to do something about it before now. When the diagnosis of schizophrenia was first suggested, that was more than 140 years ago, it was known as a cognitive problem. People talked about it as people having thinking skills problems. But then when we look at the diagnosis of schizophrenia, say in an ICD or DSM, so America or the rest of the world, cognition is absent from that diagnosis. And so for a very long time, it was absolutely ignored, and all the attention it was paid to people's delusions and hallucinations and their disorganized speech. It's only relatively recently that there's been more attention paid to cognition, even though we have always known that thinking skills did affect people's ability to take advantage of rehabilitation programs, people's dependence on psychiatric care. It's been known for a very long time that it has an effect. But because cognition was absent, we didn't develop treatments that were particularly important for people with a diagnosis of schizophrenia. The other problem is that scientists had a model of how thinking skills were involved with people with schizophrenia. They thought of it as what's called a stable vulnerability factor. So it's something that appeared just before the disorder onset. It was still present after the disorder onset, and everybody thought that you couldn't change it. And so that's another reason why thinking skills weren't really paid attention to, because the scientific model was that you couldn't change them. So you just had to live with them. Eventually, we did develop a therapy called cognitive remediation therapy. In fact, that's the words I used to describe it first of all. And it was to try and improve cognition so that you were able to take part in more functional or recovery outcomes that you might have, your personal goals. It isn't aimed just at improving your cognition, because who wants to just improve your Wisconsin card sort test or Trails B in a neuropsychological test? People want to improve their functioning, so they want to improve their social life, their work life, and their ability to manage themselves, so cooking, managing their money, that sort of thing. So cognitive remediation was set up to do that. Sometimes it's really difficult to capture the benefits of cognitive remediation, but if I just tell you about one person, or a couple of people actually, that we provided therapy for in our area, so in South London. There was one person, we had to visit her in her home, first of all, because She couldn't get out. And then after a little while, so maybe about 5 or 6 sessions, we then transferred to their community setting, to the community health centre. And she used to be brought along by her daughter. And then one week, her daughter turned up very distressed and said, "I can't find her. I don't know where she is. She was supposed to be at home and I was supposed to bring her." And her mother actually was sitting in the waiting room. So not only did the therapy help her with her cognition, it also helped to motivate her and provide her with reward so that she would turn up to a session. And often when you're doing these randomized controlled trials, the people that are sent as potential participants are often people who the staff are finding it very difficult to engage. And in one inpatient unit, we were suggested a person who, when we went to see them, they were horizontal because they were in bed. They weren't getting out, they weren't doing very much. After a little while, we would turn up to provide a session of cognitive remediation and we'd find we couldn't find them. And the reason we couldn't find them is they'd gone out to the shops. And that is definitely not something that this person would have done in the past. So cognitive remediation helps people with their own personal goals. So there are these barriers. We have actually been exploring to find out what the barriers are. One of the main barriers, interestingly enough, is that the clinicians do not know that cognition, thinking skills problems, are a barrier to recovery. And because of that, they don't think to effectively prescribe a therapy which would help. So an education program for clinicians is important to have. Of course, people talk about, particularly in the UK NHS services, oh, we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough people. We've been overcoming some of those problems. We have an online training program for circuits. We know what the resources are. We've reduced them as much as possible. We've here at SLAM and King's have developed a software program called Circuits, which it helps to improve not only cognition, but another element we think is really important, which is called metacognition. Now, metacognition is about understanding what you know in terms of your strengths and weaknesses and the strategies that you may have to manage problems. But people with a diagnosis of schizophrenia particularly do have some strategies. They're just not very efficient strategies. So what we try and do is to help them understand something called metacognitive regulation. So when you get a particular kind of a problem, then particular kinds of strategies will help you. And sometimes those strategies differ between individuals. But we take people on a circuits journey so that they go through the program, setting their own goals, marking their own homework actually, and we keep a record of whether the strategies that they've tried and whether they are useful. It's not that the therapy is unavailable. It is available. We just need to have more people who have access to it. There are just a few things that I'd like the audience to take away from my talk today. And the first, I think, is the importance of thinking skills, of cognition, and the difficulties that not just people with a diagnosis of schizophrenia, but with other serious mental health problems have with their ability to solve problems, particularly when they've got a lot of other symptoms at the same time. But I want them to understand that, but I also want them to be really optimistic that there is actually a therapy that will help those individuals. And that's two important things, but the third is probably most important to me. I want people in the audience to go and tell everybody else that there is a problem and a solution, and it's available in the form of cognitive remediation. And for people in SLAM and in the UK, Circuits is the one you need.